I'm with Erik Meeks, and this is interview number 3. Wow. And so, Erik, where did you want
Yes.
to pick up on your story?
hmm So I wanted to pick up where me and my fiance had been speaking for a while now. I had gone out to Florida where she was at, helping to build a church, um, and so she we had been talking for a while, and
Oh, wait,
you
let's
know,
back up just a little.
uh,
So, where were you in your time with NTCC, and where were you physically located? You said you went to Florida?
hmm
Okay.
oh, so okay, so I was still a student, and
Mm.
during Christmas break.
Aha.
Um, yeah. So interestingly enough, we were always told um, during Christmas break, "Hey, I don't care where you go, I don't care what you do. That's your that's between you and whatever. If break is break, and just let us know that you won't be on campus, and everything else is up to you." So I was going to, during the time, my girlfriend at the time was in Florida, helping with the Archbolds at their church. And so I decided, they had invited me out there. And so I knew that I was going to go out there to propose to her.
Ah.
And just to be above reproach, like remember my whole reason for even going to this school was for the integrity and the character building. So at first I was just gonna go out and just propose. And I'm like, I'm an adult, and we're gonna be around friends and family. There's no reason that I have to. But I just decided, you know what? I just don't want to give Keckle any leeway to try any of his tactics. So I went to the office to go inform him, and but I did it in a way more like I was asking him, can I go out to Florida? So the thing is, I never asked him, could I go out there to propose? Because I just knew, by this time, I knew he was a narcissist. And I just know their whole game.
Yeah.
And so I just asked him, hey, can I go out there to visit? I've been invited by the Archibalds. It's going to be me, my fiance, and her mother and the Archibalds, and we're all just going to hang out for a few days, and I'll be back. And he, Keiko was like, oh, he has to think about it and all this other type of stuff. And I asked him, I said, sir, I was under the impression that during vacation time, wherever that we go, you said that you didn't care what we did or where we went. And, oh, well, he's telling me, oh, well, this is different because, you're going to be with a girl and all this other stuff. And so he eventually told me that I could go, and I went out there and I proposed to her. And
Now, let me ask you a
so
quick question. I know that her
um,
mom just recently graduated. So, was
mhm.
she in school as well at the time?
She was in school at the time.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. So I went out there and I ended up proposing, and I came back, and about a few weeks later.
Did she say yes?
Oh yeah, of
I'm
course,
just
yeah. She said
kidding.
yes.
I
Yeah.
know you're married.
I knew we had a very tight, like, as much as we were able to, with all the thousands of, the laws of Moses and all this, in order to try to talk, as much as we were able to, we had a pretty tight relationship, um, for all the rules that there was. So, um, so what happened is, a few weeks later, I go to a practical theology class, and it's the same class where during this period of time, for about 4 classes, I think, he's teaching us about, sexual education and giving a woman orgasms and all that type of stuff. So before he starts the class, he begins with an introduction talking about advice and how people don't take your advice, and how he tries to help people and show people the way, essentially, but he can't do anything about it if you don't take his advice. And I'm just thinking, where's he going with this, and what does this have to do with, what does anything
Orgasms.
really have to do with anything? But yeah. And sadly enough, I'm like, what does this have to do with orgasms, please?
Oh my
So
goodness. I can't even
so
believe. I still can't wrap my head around that. I say it as often as I can in the videos because it's so outrageous. God.
and I'll even say that he didn't necessarily, he didn't teach us how to give one. He just taught us the importance of giving one. And for giving one, he recommended that we buy these certain books, or educate ourselves, outside of the Bible and
Well,
different
I
stuff
appreciate
to become.
the
Yes.
the clarification, but to me, it's still weird.
Yeah. So after he gives his introduction on advice, he points at me and he says, I'm warning you. He was like, man, I wish I could remember exactly what he said, so I'm going to paraphrase, but he said, I'm warning you. He said, there's no way that you can know, or that you can marry a woman after only talking to her on the phone. I don't care if it's been a few years, this and that. There's no way.
Oh my God, are
can know
you
a woman.
kidding me?
Yes, he
I'm
points
going to have a
right
cow
at
right
me.
here in my room because
Yes.
that is the very foundation of all the relationships that have been put together in that place.
Exactly. So, exactly,
You
right?
had more
So,
interaction with your wife on the phone for 2 years than people who sat for what? A couple hours in total?
yeah,
Oh my
yes.
goodness. Wow.
Yes. So when he did that, when he said that, number one, my heart sank because I'm like, what in the world is going on? And why is he? First of all, he lied and said that he told me and that he warned me, because he was saying just right there, I'm warning you. I try, and he was giving this impression to everyone like he's tried to tell me and lead me the right way and this and that. And I'm thinking, this is the first time I'm hearing about this at all. So I'm thinking to myself, number one, what is he talking about? And he actually also does it to another brother in there, and he describes that other brother's relationship with his now wife. But he says, and I'm warning you, he points to the other guy and describes his relationship situation. And I'm just thinking to myself, this is what I paid for, so I'm paying you, I don't know, maybe $100 or so or whatever for this class, for you to bring up my business to other people when he's had my phone number. He's
Yep.
never said anything to me personally.
2
I've
years.
talked to him personally. Yeah, and he's never said, and he's the one that gave me the okay to begin talking to her initially. So what I come to realize was that he obviously didn't think that us talking would come to anything. And I think also what surprised him is when I came back from, my trip in Florida over the holiday, and I came back engaged. And
Do you think he felt slighted because you didn't tell him first?
I do. I think so. And I know, in hindsight, I know for a fact, if I would have told him, he wouldn't have let me go. He would have made up some excuse
Yeah.
of why I couldn't go. And so once he did that, he explained some more things or whatever, and then I raised my hand to ask a question, and he calls on me, and I said, hey sir, I just have a question. I said, by the way that you described the rules and how the rules were when you were a Bible school student, because they always like to brag how much harder and much stricter that it was, during their time, during Davis's time. And I said, with all of those rules that were in place, I said, if we were to, and also as a side note, he would say that many times couples couldn't talk, or because if I guess if Pastor Davis or if he wasn't there, then there was no fellowship for that
Mm-hmm.
night, and people couldn't speak. And so the only time you were allowed was after church for that hour or hour and a half, standing against the wall or whatever with everyone watching you. And so I just mentioned to him, I said, if according to you and how the rules were, if we were to add up all the hours that you knew your wife,
Yep.
by the time you got married, I said, I'm willing to bet it didn't even add up to 1 month.
Yep.
I said, so I just have a question. What is your suggestion for us when we want to have a relationship and we want to talk to somebody, but we have to navigate through all these rules? And I said, how can anybody ever truly get to know anyone? And he thinks for a second. And mind you, when I asked this question, people looked at me like I just defaced the Bible or something.
Yep. Especially not in front of everyone else.
Yes. And so he says, well, I guess this was literally his answer. He says, well, you just talk to them. You just sit across and, you just talk to them. And he tries to move on to another subject, and I raise my hand and interject. I don't even wait for him to call on me because I know he probably wouldn't.
Right.
I said, "Excuse me, sir." I said, "I don't feel like you answered my question." And I said, and I rephrased my question, and he basically told me. And after I asked him the question the second time, and I rephrased it, he crosses his arms. And he attempts to give me this look like he'll murder me, and I could tell it was to try to strike fear in me. But I'm way beyond that. Like he didn't.
Right.
He just. I don't think he. Yeah, he didn't. He doesn't really know me that like
to realize you weren't going to go down that way.
Yes, and so he just reiterated what he said, and he basically said something to the effect of, I said, you just talk to them, you just sit across and just have a conversation, and that's how you get to know somebody. And he says, and he added in, and by the way, me and my wife, we knew each other longer than that. We knew each other for a considerable amount of time, and I was already in the ministry and this and that, and then we got married. And also, he never gave me, He stood up, pointed at me, and, called me out about basically mocking my relationship. And so when I asked him what is his remedy due to all the rules and all this other stuff, he didn't even have an answer. Mm-mm. So my point, I just wanted to show everyone basically that this man is full of it, and he knows it, and he can't even answer me.
Right.
And that was really my whole point. And when I got out of class, people, oh my God, Meeks, I can't believe that you said that and that you did that. And
what happened? Did you tell your fiance at the time about what had happened?
Oh yeah, right afterwards. Because basically, long story short, there was somebody else that she had been talking to. This was like before me, like a year or something before. And, they were interested in moving forward and getting married. And Kekel and his wife counseled this young man to get with somebody else who had a higher drive or something like that for ministry like he did. And so when they did that to me, I feel like I just recognized I feel like they were trying to do the same thing that they did to that young man.
Yes.
And I'm just thinking to myself, that's not going to work with me. Like I'm not, we actually had a pretty real relationship, as real as you could have,
right.
in our circumstances.
Right. And your first priority seemed to not be, it wasn't to please Mike in your choice.
Yes. Because what's very funny about you just saying that? So this particular young man that she was, that they were interested in moving forward with getting married and all this, he would always tell her, hey, he would always encourage her, hey, if you have any questions, if you have any whatever, you should go to your leadership, and this and that. So after that happened, when they convinced him to get with another student who was coming to school, instead of, my wife right now. She went to them and asked him, "Hey, what did you say to this? What did you say to him? Because everything was fine, and now you spoke to him, and now he broke up with me." And you know
Oh,
how
that's
they are, of course.
heartbreaking. That's terrible.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't tell him that. We didn't force him to do anything, and we just simply said this and that and all this other stuff. But basically, when she informed the young man, like, "Hey, I went to them and I talked to them," he like lost it and was like, "Oh my God!" And she said, and we even joke about this sometimes, where he said, "That's why Pastor was looking at me like that the other day," and it just showed how much even that this man's life was dictated by the opinion of his
Yes.
pastor and his leaders, and whether or not how he was looked at,
And was
and
he someone who was brought up in the church or just a Bible school
he
student
was
for?
he was he brought up all his life,
Oh,
so
okay.
and so was she.
Mm.
um
Can I
yeah.
ask you a question about all that? So, once
Hmm.
your wife's mom found out that now things weren't going to move forward with the other young man, what was her reaction to that?
I don't really know,
Oh,
because
okay.
that part that I just mentioned, I wasn't there at the time.
Mm.
This is just a story that
Yes.
that my wife has told
Right.
me.
I was just curious if you knew
Yeah, me too. I
what
was
her
kind
mom
of,
thought
yeah.
about that. Yeah.
Hmm. So what ends up happening is, after that incident, that was when Keiko started trying to push me out, and like I said earlier, it's so easy. Once you understand narcissism, it is so easy to predict what they're going to do next. So at this time, once I had a target on my back, and I knew that pretty soon my fiance at the time was going to be asking, could she come back from Florida to Graham and stay in the minister's dorm while we got our business together, get married, and and move out.
Right.
And so I knew at this time that basically what he was going to do was, his whole plan was going to try to push me out, so that if I leave, in his mind, my
She
fiance
wouldn't.
wouldn't marry me.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what everyone else thought too. And for a long time, and for most of it, I kind of believed the same thing as well. So during this time, though, I had been telling her, and I've been trying to inform her about just these different things that were not right about this church. And it it was, since she grew up in it all of her life, it was just,
Oh, she did
I
too.
wasn't getting anywhere. Yeah, she did.
Wow.
So I wasn't getting anywhere. Like, I mean, she was basically like, "Hey, let me stop you right there." She had told me that if I left, we would still be together, but she wouldn't leave with me, and she would still be a part of that church and that ministry. And so she wouldn't really listen to much of anything I really have to say about anything. They have this strong culture of that you can't say anything about anything, or you're going against God.
Right. And if she's brought
So
up in that, then that's
yeah,
all you know.
yes, exactly. And so part of what kind of kept me going and trying to pursue the relationship is because it got to a certain point where I realized, like, this place is not even just like, oh, there's just some wrong things. Like, they like to say no church is perfect. It's not about that. It's not that the church is imperfect, is that the system or the organizational part of the church is totally wicked. It just takes out the whole church part of it.
Yes.
It's no longer church anymore, really. And so I just realized, like, this girl, I'm gonna try to get her out of this place, because this place is evil. And they were taking advantage of her. Basically, in my eyes, they were taking advantage of her the whole time that she was there in Florida. She was working sometimes up to 3 jobs, sometimes getting pretty much no sleep, just so that she could stay out there and keep working for them. It wasn't to get ahead. It wasn't to do something extra for herself.
Right.
it was just to stay afloat, because you have to. Florida is one of the most expensive states in our country, and that's why most people who live there are retirees. And and the wage is low, and then just all these other factors like the insurance of everything, house insurance, car insurance, it's high because of the natural disasters and stuff they have there.
Right.
So it's really difficult to live out there as just a single regular person making like $14 or something an hour.
So did she
And
live by herself?
she did at first. She had her own apartment, and she was doing, she was just keeping things together. And eventually, Tanya recommended that she move into a house with these other Christian girls in Florida, and it would help her to just save money, and it wouldn't be as expensive.
Wait a minute. What do you mean other Christian girls? Like in NTCC?
No, they weren't in. So I guess what happened was Tanya was part of like a group on Facebook. And so whatever group that she was at, she saw that there were some girls who needed a roommate. And that just ended up kind of being a nightmare.
I can't even. Why would she do that? You find something online and think, oh my goodness.
Yes,
all right, I gotta keep. I'm gonna zip. Just go ahead.
So what people don't understand, because I mean, a lot of people have this mindset, or this, they have this attitude where they're pretty much like, oh, I tricked her or deceived, my wife into leaving, and somehow I got that smooth tongue of the devil, and I just was able to just talk her out the place, and cause her to abandon everybody.
Right, and what does that say about her?
Yeah.
They're not saying very much about her. Like what? She's simple-minded and doesn't have her own mind?
Yes. And the thing is, this girl is very, very strong. Like she's, I mean, even just think of working 3 jobs or more just to do fake ministry out there.
Yes. Yes.
That's crazy. Like that's an achievement to me, because I would have quit. But and it was just to stay afloat. And so the reason our relationship was so strong was because it was like we were doing life together. I know what she's going through, she knows what I'm going through, and we're helping each other. And so it was just at a point to where I just saw like, okay, I can't even unsee that they're just literally taking advantage of you, and they don't care. Not one time did Keiko or his wife, not once did they call and say, hey, I know you're living in the most expensive state in America right now. Is there anything you need? Or, hey, are you at least all right? I think it's like one of the top for kidnapping and stuff too, and like sex trafficking.
Did seem very unusual when you told me that she was helping there. I hadn't heard about single ladies going out to help very much.
Okay, so she was supposed to, there was another sister who went out there, and, I guess I would give this sister a round of applause, because she probably just wisened up. They tried to kind of talk bad about her or slight her, like, oh, she wasn't strong enough, she couldn't do it or whatever, she wasn't dedicated enough. But I think she just wisened up and was like, I'm not doing this is stupid.
Right.
And she ended up coming back. So they had told, my wife, like, hey, from my understanding, what happened is, they had suggested she go down there because she wanted to leave and do a work of God, how they put that in your...
Yes.
The only way you can really do a work for God is if you leave and go to Timbuktu. And then they're like, hey, the other young lady who was supposed to be out there and who, we wanted you to basically be with, she's coming back. But my wife still decided to go. So that is why, that happened. The thing about Archbold, though, is that I will say he is a very hard worker.
But I wanted to ask this question for a while.
Yeah, he has, he gets money from the military. He also has a job. He also has a farm. This dude is doing like 5 different roles, he's just like moving like 24/7.
Right.
So
But
that's
does he also do that for like laboring for the church and all, do you feel
so
like?
the church is kind of more just like I don't really know how to explain it. His church is kind of more just like, he feels that he's called to the ministry, but it's not a super full-time thing, as in it's not full-time in the model that NTCC has.
And
He
I
still
think
lives his
that's more
life. He
normal.
still
I think what he's
no,
doing,
honestly, I like how he does it. I'm
yeah,
not gonna because it's more normal. He's still as much as he can be because he's busy a lot, but he still just works. He's like a normal person. He works. He's
right.
also a pastor. He's a father. He does. And so it's not, when I went to his church, I didn't really get that NTCC, that weird constricting vibe. It just felt welcome, and it felt just really like a normal church.
Yeah, I've
It
seen
really
that
did.
from
And you
his
know what? A lot of
videos.
yeah,
I just wondered the dynamic because I wanted to see, is she working all this and they're not? Like they're putting it on her back. So I'm glad to know that that wasn't the case for her.
yeah, that really wasn't so much the case, like they were lazy or anything. They're
Right.
really hard workers and
That's
stuff.
good.
It
That's
was
good.
just more like, she's by herself and it's really expensive.
Yes.
And you have to remember, like, because of the schedule and all the services and everything,
Mm-hmm.
you can't get the employment that you desire, or she had to overlook a lot of very good opportunities. And so that was a big part of what was going on. And one thing that I saw about, my wife, that I admired at the time, and still right now, is that she was actually doing everything for God and for the Lord. She wasn't like, there's still that culture there where you feel like you'll let people down if you're not, super awesome or whatever. But at the end of the day, it was for God. Where with a lot of people, it's very apparent that it's it's about other stuff, or it's about making a name for yourself
Right.
in the organization. And
Right.
and so that was kind of one of the talks that I had with her when we, during the time. It was actually the talk that I had with her right before Gandhi pulled up on me, like, the police. I was telling her that I didn't care about position in that place. I didn't care if I was liked. I didn't care how they saw me. That I was just going to do what God told me to do. And if people like it, then they do. And if they didn't, then I didn't care.
Right.
And I was asking her, was she okay with that? And, she told me, yeah, I'm fine with that. What ended up happening is, a few weeks after the whole incident in practical theology class, my fiance at the time texts Keckle and asks him, hey, we're gonna be getting married soon. Can I come down, stay in the minister's dorm, and we'll be out soon, and and get married and stuff. He usually it takes a very long time, hours or sometimes even days, for him to answer you back, if you even get an answer. But funny enough, we were even laughing about it, because he texted her back, like, literally, I mean, the message barely got out and he already had a response. And he sent her all these texts basically telling her, hey, you're making a big mistake. You don't know this man. I don't know him either. You need to really think, do you want to do this? All these type of different things. And what was just so interesting is, before, when we first started talking, he went out to go visit the Archbolds in Florida for a conference or something. She had asked Keckle, hey, what do you think about Erik? And because she had informed me that his response was going to play a big part in whether or not she was going to continue speaking with me.
Wow.
He told her, hey, I think he's genuine. I think he has the Holy Spirit. He's one of the most studious students in the Bible school. And he said all these things, and I was so surprised. I was so happy and grateful. And I'm like, yes, that's my leader, like,
And this
And
was before you stood up in class or asked the question in class?
yes, this is, yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
was before.
Mm-hmm.
This was in the very beginning when we first started talking, me and my
Ah.
fiance. So now, fast forward about a year or so, back to this practical theology class, and then to her asking, can she come over? He informs her like, hey, you don't know him. This is a bad decision, this and that. And, his whole opinion about me and everything, it was completely different. It was completely changed. It was like the opposite. She calls me, and as he's sending her these messages, she's reading and telling me what he's saying. I said, well, he was basically trying to give her this impression. See, a lot of the things that are done at this church, especially by the leaders and the pastors, it's all done under the cloak of what is called plausible deniability. And so anything that they do, they can attack you, they can speak about you, and you say, hey, you're talking about me. And it could be plausibly denied. Oh, no, it wasn't you. But the fact that you thought it was you, it shows that there's something, you have a heart problem or
Oh
this or that.
no.
They do all these type of things. It's basically gaslighting.
It is
And
gaslighting.
so they do all these things where they can easily deny it and twist it into something else that it isn't. So I told her to ask him, hey, since he's trying to give you the impression that there's something about me that you don't know, that, would be just detrimental, that if you were to marry me, it would like your life will fall apart. I'm like, ask him, what does he know? Ask him, what did I do, or what have I done, or what does he know about me?
Right.
Because, like I said, I was very open and honest at all times, with my fiance, and even with Keckle. Since I went there for integrity and discipline, whenever I did something that I felt warranted for, that was against the rules, or I was breaking a rule or something like that, I would tell him. I would text him, or I would call him. Hey, sir, I apologize. I did this and that. I even had done things that could have got me kicked out, and I still told him. And so, everything that I ever told him, I had also told my fiance, so she knew everything.
Right.
So when she asked him, hey, what is it about him? Then he says, oh, I'll see you at conference, and chooses not to answer. So she asks again in a different way, and he's just like, see you later, sister. Like he's trying to leave her in suspense, or like wondering about me,
Or did he not
And
want to put it in writing, maybe?
maybe he didn't want to put it in writing, or I wouldn't see why. That makes sense. That's smart. Yeah, if that is a possibility. One thing that he also said, this man lies so much that it's
Mm-hmm.
just, one thing that he said to her when she asked, hey, can I come back, and told him our plans and everything, he says, and also, you can't just come back like that. We have to, the board has to approve it.
Really?
And she's like, oh, I'd never heard of that. I never knew that. She said, well, what steps do I have to take for the board to approve it that I can come back? I get in about 5 minutes later or so, he relents basically. He's like, okay, fine, you can come, and this and that, and, but you're making a mistake and this and that. And so I guess maybe in those 5 minutes, he had a board meeting, and, they approved it. So what ended up happening when she came back is, like I said, it's so easy to predict what narcissists are going to do. So I told her the whole playbook. I told her, hey, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. So I knew as soon as she got here, he would find an excuse and a reason to enact something that is called, the no talking rule, the no dating or courting rule.
Right.
And so what that is it's a rule that whenever Keckle gets his feelings hurt, or he feels like someone has disrespected him, or just because maybe he's had a bad day, what he'll do is he'll tell all the students, hey, it doesn't matter if it's your fiance, it doesn't matter, your girlfriend or whatever. You guys cannot communicate through any type of means, not writing, not texting, not phones, For usually it's about for the semester, which is 3 months.
What?
And so yes, so and but the thing is that usually after the semester is over and you can speak again, maybe about after a month, if you're lucky, he'll do it again. And he will say, "Oh, it's so that you guys can study and focus on God more, because you can't really focus on God if you're always on the phone for hours with, your girlfriend or your boyfriend, or you guys are going out on dates and this and that."
Oh, right.
It would be
Keep
like,
keep them from each other. So that's all they think about. And that's all their body feels is the desire to be near that
yes,
person. Yeah, that makes so much sense.
yes,
That makes so much sense.
yes. There was just like this weird culture that I would see where, and I call everything a culture here because everything literally is a,
It
is a
is.
culture at that
It
place.
really is.
But there's like this weird thing where they literally demonize dating and relationships, and it's that cognitive dissonance type thing where they encourage you to marry, and more people should be getting married, and why aren't people dating and this and that. But when you do and you finally do, then they demonize it and they
Right.
make you feel like a wicked, dirty person
Right.
for desiring to have a relationship and have a normal I mean, even a relationship at that, having a relationship at NTCC is there's nothing normal about it.
No.
But just having they demonize normal human interaction. I agree with the principle of purity that they're trying to, but just the way that they go about it, like me and my wife, the whole time that we were in communication with each other and everything, we always kept it pure, but we also, we were just normal people,
Yes.
we still honor God, but at the same time, just this extra thing, like, and it's funny that you talk about the picture thing. That's actually like a thing. When you take a picture with your significant other, you can't touch and don't be too close where it even looks like you're touching.
Wow.
So, and they use the verse, "It's good for a man to not even touch." And the thing that's so crazy is they completely take that verse out of context.
Totally.
That verse is not. Otherwise, Jesus would have been in the wrong when the woman cried and wiped her hair and stuff on his feet. Then that would have been some sexual weird thing that he would have been doing wrong, or some type of
Right.
you know. And it's like, but that's not what it was talking about. It was talking about sexual immorality and
Of
that each man should
course.
have his own wife. And so, but of course, they take it way out and do something else with it. So finally, when my wife comes out to Graham, Keiko enacts the no talking rule, or I'm sorry, the no dating rule, so we could still talk, I believe, as I remember, because he's enacted the rule so many times that I've just kind of lost track of what. After a certain point in time, all the students quit even obeying that rule, and they were pretending like they were following it, but nobody followed it. People were still talking,
Oh, I'm
and
glad.
because it just yeah, me too. Because it got to a point where it was just obvious he was being spiteful and
Spiteful.
vindictive, and
Really.
you're messing with people's lives.
Yeah.
That's a and that's the thing about this place is that if you're gonna go here and you think that you want to go here because it's strict and they're gonna help you to be disciplined and you're gonna learn about God and this and that, but what a lot of people I feel don't realize is that your life is actually played with. It would even be different if it was kind of like in the military, how you're made to do all these things, but it's actually to really, it's for it's a means to an end for something that is supposed to be positive. But here it's not. It actually really is not like that. You are signing up to be these people's toy
Yeah.
and these people's
Puppets.
puppet, and they play with your life based on their emotions, and it happens all the time.
And Eric, he even said about you too in services, He's looking for your reaction. So he thinks he's this big man on campus, that he's running it like a boot camp. He's not, because like you just said, a boot camp, there's a reason for it. It's for the entire mission, and it actually promotes camaraderie and everything else. Not it's your battle buddy, and it bonds everyone together in basic training and in your further training. And that's the way it has to be. And that is the opposite of NTCC. They try to separate and keep people from having those special close bonds. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. It's when I early on, when I entered into school and I started thinking about the rules and just really just pondering on what the rules were and what could be the possible reasons for them. Not the reasons that they were telling me, because the reasons they were telling me didn't make any sense.
Right.
So as a good example, they literally separate everybody. If you're a student, you can't talk to ministers, and a minister is a person that has graduated from their school. So most of my friends and stuff were ministers, and the person who brought me into the organization was a minister. And so when I entered into school, I could no longer speak with him. And except for in church under the watchful eye of Keckle and the leadership. But after church, when you walk off of the church campus, there's no more communication. You're not allowed to text them. You're not allowed to hang out with them.
So you can't even get permission to do it.
Yes, and you're going to be told no.
Right.
You're going to be told no.
Right.
And so they separate the congregation members from the ministers, and the ministers from the students, and the students from the congregation. Everyone is separated. So the thing that doesn't really make sense to me is, how can the ministers minister to anybody if they're separated from everybody?
Yes.
But at the same time, if you're not ministering to anyone, you'll also be blasted over the pulpit that, these ministers don't even do anything when people come to the pulpit front. Nobody comes down to pray with them, and this and that. And so it's like everyone is separated, and the only way, for instance, that I would be allowed to speak to a congregation member is if they're called contacts. If I won them,
yes,
in soul winning, if they came to church basically because of a card that I gave them.
Right.
And so if that happens, then I can speak to this person because, in their language, that's my soul.
Yes.
Paul says, is the body of Christ divided? And that's exactly what they do at that church. They divide everybody. But at the same time, there goes the cognitive dissonance thing. At the same time, there's a rule that says no cliques.
Yeah.
So
is there really?
Don't be in a clique, but you better not talk to anyone who is not in your... I'm just like, that's when I started to see, hey, it's one of my rules that I learned from this place. If it starts to not make sense, then it's just religion. If you take the rule and you put it in another situation or circumstance and it makes no complete sense, chances are it's just being religious. It's just some type of, it's not God.
And they're sorting people out and dividing them from each other because they want to watch and they want to be in control of all conversations and everything. And you know what? Church members pick up on that. And then they're like, well, how come nobody talks to me?
Yes. I mean, as an example, there was an older man, really old man, and this man played chess, and I'm also a chess player, and he wanted to, he's like, hey, we should play chess sometimes. And he's been part of the organization for a long time. So he knows the rules, but we didn't really think it would be a huge deal for two men to go in public somewhere and play chess. But, I was told, no, you can't. He's a congregation member and you're a student.
Are you serious?
Yes. Wait till you graduate and then maybe you can, And it was just things like that where it's just like, okay. And, the reason for it was for the sake of balance, let me tell you their very good reason for why. So it was because, possibly he might ask me for money, or um, just different things that might come up that I wouldn't know how to deal with it, pretty much, if it happened. And
Do you
so
really
they just,
believe
for
you
my
wouldn't know how to deal with it?
That's what I'm saying. In the past we've had, students or congregation members ask each other for money or borrow money or something, and it's caused issues. And
Right.
also, one
And
thing they're
that's the
very afraid
reason.
of.
That's the reason for the rule. You guys make the rules by doing these stupid things. So they don't even allow for
Yes,
godliness in someone. You know what? If you make a mistake and give to someone and you find out they're a scallywag and they're getting it from everybody, okay, lesson learned. But
exactly.
that's
And you know
not what
what?
the
These
rule
things
is
happen in
for.
real life,
Yep, the rule is
and
not
these
for
things are going to
that.
happen in the ministry.
Yep, and they don't
Hmm.
want you to make those bonds because they already know it's going to bite them in the butt when you start realizing what they're about, and maybe you'll influence one of those people.
That's really what it is. And another thing they're very afraid of is dating. Is people dating each other, pretty much. And um,
Who else are you
they
supposed to date?
literally,
I mean, each other.
yeah, yes. And you know what?
Stop dating each other, man. Stop dating each other. Go date yourself.
Yes, because you might be sexually immoral if you date someone and they don't know about it, and they don't have control over it. You might be tempted to be sexually immoral. And here's the thing, just like, that is a possibility, but there are so many good churches out there that don't separate everyone and that don't do these insane things. And at these churches, maybe some of these people just have the Holy Spirit and they just choose, because they honor God, hey, I'm going to do things the right way and I'm not going to, you know, do things out of order. And
Right.
it's like, at this church, they don't trust the Holy Spirit in you. I'm getting to the point where I think they don't even believe in God, and I'm so serious.
No,
Because
I am
if
totally
they
serious
did,
too.
yeah, if they did, why would they act like this? And why would they feel so comfortable? They preach about hell, and they know so well, how who in the congregation and which students and stuff are going to go to hell probably, and
Right.
all these different things. And but it never crosses their mind when they do their wickedness that there's anything wrong. And so what ended up happening is, after he made the no dating or no going out on dates rule, um, it started to just become very apparent that he was just trying to push me and kick me out and get me to actually kick myself out,
Mm,
so that he could say, see, I told you he was not dedicated.
right.
And this is something that everybody was really waiting to happen, so that they could also say the same thing. And once I began to notice that and realize that, it really saddened me on a very deep level, because people who you think that believe in you or who are rooting for you, you find out that most of them are really are not. And a lot of people there are kind of waiting for you or wanting you to fall, so they can be like, oh, that person was exposed and now we know who they really are. That was good that they were exposed. So now we're, I don't know, does that bring them some type of safety, or, kind of like how Kekel had said before in one of his recent sermons a few months ago, how, I think this is the same sermon. I'm actually, oh, yeah, okay. So in one of Haeckel's sermons, he talked about how when he can just tell a person who's going to fail, he writes their name down on a piece of paper, and then he describes that this person is going to fail, they're going to leave early, they're going to do this and that, and he puts that piece of paper away in his Bible or in a book in his library. And when that person fails, he comes out and he shows everyone the paper and says, see here,
Right.
I told you, I called it a year ago, or I called it this long ago, and I was right, you know.
Is this like a
And
like a bad magic trick? So,
yeah,
um,
what's
did he
interesting, I
show
would
people
really encourage.
first? Did he show people And maybe he did. I think he might have said something in that service like, I showed it to, but I don't remember if he said he showed people afterwards. Like, dude, you could have ran in your office and jotted down the name and come
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
See? Ta-da!
And he probably would also do that too, probably knowing him. But yeah, that it is like a bad magic trick. And really, what's kind of interesting, I'll just say this, and just for the sake of moving forward, um, what's kind of interesting is that's a common witchcraft spell, especially in voodoo, and it's known as a destiny lock. And it's something that somebody writes your name on a piece of paper, and they put it in a locket or in a box or in some type of enclosed device, and they bury it or throw it in the river or in the water or put it in a tree. And supposedly, according to how the spell is supposed to work, that person whose name is trapped inside of whatever device, that person will stay stagnant their entire life. It will be like they will be in a spiritual prison. They won't progress spiritually. They won't progress physically. They'll go from dead end job to dead end job. They won't be able to get married. All these different things, all the things that kind of actually remind you of New Testament Christian church, all the
Yes.
stagnancy, no moving forward. So, the fact that he would say that, and, I'll just say this, if somebody gets in trouble for embezzlement, just because you don't know, hey, you're under arrest for embezzlement. Well, I don't even know what that means. It doesn't mean that you didn't embezzle. So, just because let's say that he doesn't know, hey, this is evil, this is some type of, people do this as a spell,
Right.
almost to a T, the way that he describes that he does it. Well, it doesn't matter, Keckle, that you didn't know that that was what it is, but you still did it. And guess what? You still have the same heart attitude and intent that it takes to actually perform that spell for someone to, because everything is about heart attitude and how we, and so
Right.
that's just something I thought was,
There's no softness involved, no compassion like, oh, I really feel bad for this guy, but I had to enact this destiny spell on him because like there's
yeah.
you know, he
Yes. I
forced me
mean,
to do
and
it.
that's the thing. That's what really surprised. But this was at the end where I knew I was leaving. But and this whole time I was continuing to pray though and ask for just continual confirmation that I was doing the right thing and making the right decision, because I was terrified of being rebellious, and I was also scared of being rebellious, especially against God. And
Mhm.
I'm like, hey, I don't want this to be some type of work of the enemy or something. So I'm still praying, even though I know I'm leaving. I'm like, hey, I still want to make sure. And this man was giving me all the confirmations that I needed every service.
Let me
Just like
ask
how
you
you
this
mentioned,
before you
uh,
did he ever in speaking on this whole thing about softness and tenderness and what you would expect a pastor to do that he claims to be.
mhm.
Wouldn't you did he ever pull you aside and say, "Hey, Eric, let's go have a coffee or something and talk." Let's
No,
talk.
never, never. And when I would text him or call him or whatever, speak to him and say, hey, sir, I did this. I broke this rule. I did this sin. I'm telling you because I'm under your authority, and I believe, and this and that. And so, I believed, and I still do, if I was going to be a minister there, that I can't establish a ministry or anything on lies or on hypocrisy or on, anything fake. I couldn't be established on there. So I'm like, I can't have a ministry if I've got it, if I got through school because I cheated, or, I did this and that thing and I never told anyone and I just feel like I got away with it. Because, well, look what's happening right now. All these pastors are doing this stuff that they thought they got away with, and they're getting caught. And now they
Yep.
look even twice as stupid.
Yep.
So I went to him and I would tell him, and he never ever say, hey, I'm praying for you, or hey, let me give you this Bible verse that might help you. Never. I've never got, the most he's ever did is one time he told me, I poured out my heart to him in a text about a sin I had done, and it was something I had struggled with, and I promised I'd never do it again, and please let me stay. I love these people, and I love being here. And he sent me a text, and it just said, I suggest that you reread the student handbook. And that was all. So I tried calling him just to maybe get some type of closure, and nothing. He didn't. Oh, he forwarded my call here. He hung up on me or something. And so no, he's never ever did nothing like encourage me or give me Bible verses or anything. So it did make sense that when you get on his nerves, he's going to lock up your destiny